Why don't you move out? That single line, flung carelessly across a courtroom, wasn't just a question, it was a declaration of war. And for Ms. Brannon, it was the final insult after months of barely contained chaos in the home she rented. The courtroom was still. Judge Judy arched an eyebrow, a classic expression that signaled one thing: this is going to be a mess. Ms. Brannon sat stiffly at the plaintiff's podium, her voice tight but polite, the sort of carefully rehearsed calm that masks a volcano underneath. She was a single mother of 3, plus one niece, all crammed into a 2-family house where the landlord, Mr. Brown, lived upstairs. The rent, $1,300, which became $325 after she requested internet. Reasonable, normal, but nothing in this story would stay that way for long. Her first month in the unit should have been the beginning of stability. Instead, it was the start of an unraveling. A few weeks after she moved in, Mr. Brown's girlfriend arrived. Unannounced, uninvited, and with her came the cat, a creature Brannon would later describe with the weary fear of someone who's been cornered in their own hallway by a scratch-happy demon in fur. The judge perked up when the cat came up. So this animal is just wandering around the apartment? Yes, ma'am, Miss Brannon replied. And it kept getting into my bedroom because my door doesn't close properly. It has no lock. Judge Judy's tone turned surgical. And why didn't you fix your own door? I didn't think I should have to pay for that, she said. It's his property. That's when Mr. Brown smirked. That smug, twitchy little smile, the kind that practically begged for a gavel to the forehead. He shrugged. She could have just shut the door. She couldn't shut the door, Mr. Brown, Judge Judy fired back. Because it doesn't shut. The courtroom was already leaning toward Miss Brannon. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't dramatic. Just tired. The kind of tired you only get from raising kids, holding down a job and battling an emotionally indifferent landlord who treated her like an annoyance instead of a tenant. And Mr. Brown, he looked like every passive-aggressive roommate from college. A man who thought buying a gate to keep the cat in was the same as solving a problem. But then came the night everything changed. October 14th, Brannon returned from her shift as a restaurant manager, bone-weary and craving silence. But when she went to unlock the door, nothing. The key wouldn't turn. She tried both keys again and again. No click. No give. Just silence. Her children were inside asleep. She was locked out. The way she told it, she panicked. She texted her teenage daughter from outside the door, pleading for her to come unlock it. Her daughter did. From the inside, the door swung open without effort, but not from her key. Cue the drama. Cue the allegations he changed the locks. Cue the smirk again from Mr. Brown. No, I didn't. And so began the standoff, right there under the bright lights of Judge Judy's courtroom. Was she a harassed tenant being bullied and locked out of her own home? Or was he a landlord, trying to manage a situation spiraling out of control? Judge Judy leaned back slightly, watching them both. Her smirk said everything. Oh, we're just getting started. And somewhere backstage the cat probably licked its paws, perfectly content to be the villain no one invited. Absolutely. It didn't take long for Judge Judy to dive in. With the eyebrow arched and arms crossed, she fixed her stare on the man at the defendant's podium, the landlord, Miss Brown. You could practically hear her inner monologue. Let's see how far down this rabbit hole of nonsense goes. So Mr. Brown, she began, her tone clipped. Did you change the locks on the door? No, Your Honor, he replied smoothly. Too smoothly. She didn't flinch. Then why didn't her keys work on October 14th? Mr. Brown shrugged. Again, I don't know. Maybe the door was stuck. Stuck, Judge Judy repeated. And how convenient that it was only stuck for her, and not her daughter who opened it from the inside. Boom. The first hit landed. Mr. Brown blinked but didn't budge. He leaned back slightly, a tactic that might work with people who hadn't been dissecting lies since the Clinton administration. She says you changed the tumbler, Judy continued, and that her keys, both keys, suddenly didn't work. I didn't touch the lock, he insisted, with all the conviction of a teenager caught sneaking in past curfew. Meanwhile, Miss Brannon looked like she'd been vindicated. Her arms were crossed too, but tighter, clutching herself with the kind of tension you only feel when you've been ignored for months and finally have someone listening. But Judge Judy wasn't about to hand out sympathy like Halloween candy. So Miss Brannon, she turned, pivoting on a dime. You're telling me you lived there with 3 children and a niece, and your door never had a proper lock? That's right, she said. And you never fixed it? No, Your Honor. I didn't think I should have to pay for it. It's the landlord's responsibility. Let's get this straight, Judy said. You're living in a house with 4 kids. A cat is clawing its way into your bedroom nightly, and instead of buying a $5 hook lock, you wait 3 months and then complain when nothing changes. I was trying to work with him, she replied. Judy shook her head slowly. Working with him is not a substitute for basic safety and common sense. Cue the audience nod. And this cat, Judy continued, flipping through her paperwork like a prosecuting attorney with fresh ammo. Did you ever tell your tenant that there was an animal on the premises? Mr. Brown straightened his spine slightly. She asked me and I told her it was my girlfriend. Not a notice, she snapped. A warning. Something like, hey, just so you know, there's an animal here that might get into your unit and terrorize your children. That kind of thing. He didn't answer. Of course you didn't, she said, deadpan. Then came the kick. Let's talk about the night in question. Miss Brannan says she got home at 11:30 from work. What do you do for work, Miss Brannan? I'm a restaurant manager. We close at 11. I left shortly after. Reasonable, Judy nodded. And Mr. Brown, where were you that night? I was home, he said. So you didn't hear her trying the door? No, I was asleep. Let me ask you something, Judy said almost kindly. Did she ever yell, knock, ring a bell? I'm sure she— Then you're admitting you ignored a woman locked out of her own house while her children were inside. He paused. I didn't say that. You just did, she snapped. And now it was his turn to squirm. At this point the judge had heard enough vague timelines. Enough maybe it was stuck, and I didn't hear anything, so she leaned back, the sarcasm sharp as a scalpel. You want me to believe she made all this up? That the lock just decided to be temperamental that night? That she couldn't figure out how to use a key but the next day it magically worked again? Silence. She says you were retaliating, Judy continued. That she'd been complaining for months and you were trying to push her out. I wasn't. Mr. Brown. She has text messages. Judy added casually. Want to explain the one that says, and I quote, you can bring it to court. I've got recordings. Now that got his attention. I meant her yelling, he said quickly. She was yelling at me. I recorded. And did you play that recording for the court? No. Why not? He hesitated. I didn't bring it. The smirk was gone now. So was the calm. You threatened to use a recording in court, Judy repeated, but didn't bring it. No, it was clear. This was no longer just a dispute over a door lock. It was about power, control, and pettiness wrapped in landlord legalese. The judge narrowed her eyes. I'll be honest with you both. One of you is full of it, and my job is to figure out. She sat back and gave them both the kind of look you only get once you've officially run out of patience. Let's move on, she said, before the cat shows up in court and starts testifying. There's a moment in every Judge Judy case when the courtroom energy shifts, when a story so carefully rehearsed begins to crack under the pressure of one too many questions. This was that moment, and the weapon, inconsistency. Brannan, Judge Judy said, flipping her file closed with a precise snap. You said both your keys didn't work the night of October 14th. Yes, ma'am, she answered. But when the order of protection ended and you returned home, you used those same keys and they worked. Yeah. So were they broken, or were you wrong? Ms. Brannan hesitated. They didn't work that night, she insisted. I tried them several times. Judge Judy tilted her head. Maybe they didn't work because you were putting them in the wrong lock. The courtroom chuckled. Ms. Brannan didn't. No, Your Honor. I know my own house. Do you know your own house better than a locksmith? Judy shot back. Because unless your landlord had a locksmith change the tumbler, wait for the drama to settle, then replace the original tumbler in secret, your keys should have worked. Because they did. Later. There it was. The slow unravel. But I swear they didn't. That's not swearing, Judy cut in. That's guessing, and the law doesn't run on guesses. At the defendant's table, Mr. Brown looked smug again. A mistake. Wipe that grin off your face, sir, the judge snapped. You're not exactly winning here. Because while Ms. Brannan's timeline had holes, Mr. Brown's intentions were starting to smell worse than a litter box full of cover-ups. Let's rewind. He had a tenant, a woman with children, who told him her door didn't lock. She had texted him about a strange cat. He admitted the cat was his girlfriend's. He knew there was a risk, yet no lock was fixed, no door replaced, no apology offered. I told her to shut her door, he said again. Even though she said it wouldn't shut? Judy asked. I figured she could figure something out. Did she look like a handyman to you? The judge barked. No, Your Honor, and yet you expected her to fix what you wouldn't. There was a pause. A delicious gavel-heavy silence. Judy used it like a scalpel. Let me explain something, she said, voice suddenly soft, which always meant a storm was coming. You rented a home to a woman with 4 minors. The bedroom door wouldn't lock. The cat was aggressive. You chose not to repair the problem. And then mysteriously her keys didn't work on the night she returned late from work. I didn't do anything to the door, he repeated. No, but you didn't do what you should have done either. Then came the real twist. Judge Judy lifted a page. I have here a text message sent from Mr. Brown to Ms. Brannon. Would you like me to read it out loud? Mr. Brown paled slightly. No, Your Honor. Too late. If you don't like it, move out. But I'm not fixing anything. Boom. The air sucked out of the room. Judy didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The weight of the words and their implications said enough. This was a retaliatory attitude, she said coldly. You refused to fix the lock because you were annoyed she was complaining. You wanted her out. It wasn't like that, he mumbled. Judy leaned forward. Then what was it like? Enlighten me. He said nothing. Exactly, she said. Ms. Brannon sat quietly, her fingers curled tightly together. She wasn't smiling. Not yet. She'd just been handed her credibility back, but Judge Judy wasn't finished. Now, she continued, flipping to the last page. Let's discuss the audio recordings you threatened her with. I didn't bring them, Mr. Brown muttered. Right, Judy snapped. Because they probably don't exist. Or if they do, they don't say what you claim. Either way, that threat, bring it to court. I got a recording, was intimidation. She stared him down. And sir, I don't like intimidation. He folded his hands. Judy turned back to Miss Brannon. You weren't perfect, she said. You should have found a way to fix that door. You stayed longer than you should have. But you were working. You were tired. You were trying. Ms. Brannon nodded, her eyes softening for the first time. Then Judy turned to the camera crew. You know what drives me nuts? She said loud enough for the audience to hear. People who think being a landlord is just collecting money and ignoring complaints. You don't want to manage property. Don't rent property. The audience clapped in silence. Then she turned to the viewers, the millions who would watch this scene unfold on YouTube, at home, at work, or in secret during lunch breaks. This is what happens, she said, when two people think they're smarter than each other, and forget that I get the final word. Judge Judy sat still for a moment, letting the tension fill every inch of the courtroom. She didn't speak. She didn't blink. She simply stared, flipping through her notes like a surgeon reviewing an X-ray before delivering a diagnosis no one wanted to hear. And then, like always, came the verdict. Sharp, final, unapologetic. Mr. Brown, she began, you failed as a landlord. The defendant opened his mouth slightly. She raised a hand. No, no more. You had a tenant, a woman with children, who made you aware of multiple problems. You dismissed them. You ignored her. You gave her attitude when she complained about a dangerous animal entering her space. He shifted in place, trying to look anywhere but at the bench. You let your girlfriend's cat terrorize the apartment, she continued. You allowed a broken bedroom door to remain unfixed. You even told her to move out if she didn't like it. Her voice dropped low. Acidic. You know what that's called? Retaliation. You didn't physically change the locks, but you wanted her to feel like she didn't belong anymore. And for that you should be embarrassed. Ms. Brannon exhaled quietly. No victory fist pump. No smug grin. Just tired relief. The kind that comes from finally being heard after months of being dismissed. But Judy wasn't done. And you, Brannon, she said, turning to the plaintiff, you're not walking away with a clean slate either. A beat. You had options. You could have documented every single incident. You could have sent formal complaint. You could have fixed that lock yourself. Yes, I know it's the landlord's responsibility, but this was about your children's safety. A $5 hook could have changed everything. Ms. Brannon nodded. You stayed too long, Judy added. You tolerated too much, and unfortunately you let it build into a disaster. She leaned back, then made her final ruling with her signature tone, part teacher, part executioner. Here's how this will go. I'm awarding you partial damages for emotional stress and for the unsafe living conditions. 500. This wasn't a lockout. There was no proof the locks were changed, but there was a breakdown in responsibility. She tapped her gavel once. Judgment for the plaintiff. 500. A murmur swept through the courtroom, and just like that the case was closed. But not before Judy left them, and the audience with one last burn. You don't get paid for being passive, she said. You don't get off the hook for being petty. Then she looked directly at Mr. Brown. And you don't run a rental like it's a mood ring. If you want peace, manage your property. If you want drama, keep doing exactly what you're doing. And finally, with one of her famous sarcastic shrugs, she added, or maybe just stick to owning cats. Cue the music. Cue the exit. Cue the camera slow panning out while both parties shuffle off screen. One vindicated, the other thoroughly scorched.